All right, guys, thanks for joining in on another episode of Six Packs and Racks. Coming at you from all over the world today. We're glad to have you listening, glad to have you with us. As always, our show is presented by Wild Carrot Deer Attract and Breaking Point TV, Whitetail DNA, and Sir Scott Spitzley of NTP Images. We are going to crank this episode off as we always do with a segment we call Hitting the Scrape, which is just a who you are, where you at, what you doing kind of thing. We're going to start this one off today with Spitzley. So Spitzley, man, I see you sitting at your desk. What have you been up to lately?
Uh, I've been walking actually a lot the last couple days. I got no bone to show for it though. It's just nice getting outside. Um, Other than that, I haven't really been doing much but work at home. So, I walked a couple public pieces within the last couple days. Still quite a bit of snow. Um, and I haven't found nothing yet. So,
You've
but
been you've been out of town though. You just got back, right? A few days ago.
yep, just got back from Alabama. Let's see, it's been 4 days now, 3 days now.
Soaking in that home life and just enjoying being off the road for a minute.
Yes, sir.
Good deal, man. All right, Mansell, what about you, man? Where you at? What you been up to?
I just got home. We were actually down by Sparta filming our trailer here today, all met up, and we went through one last run through with our show booth before we go to Iowa this weekend. Or Brendan and Aaron are going to be down in Iowa at the Deer Classic this weekend, so got that all good to go. And was out this last weekend, did some shed hunting, and put quite a few miles on, and was able to pick up a few antlers. So it was a pretty good weekend.
Good deal, man.
Yep.
Anything else for us?
That's all I got, man.
Short and
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Sweats, what about you, buddy? I see you out there in those comfy pants looking for sheds. What have you been up to lately?
Always. Yeah, I've been shed hunting. Was able to pick up set from a buck that I know pretty well. Big old buck that I actually almost shot in December. So that was pretty exciting. That's about it. I've done a lot more walking since. Haven't found anything else, and all to work. So that's all I know.
So
I
explain
know
to me
those.
how
I
you.
know those are laying by you right now. Do you got them? You can show them to us. Those big
I
ones you
just seen
found.
them too.
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
I know they're right there. Don't act like they're not.
Gotta take the headset off though.
Dylan's like, fuck these sheds.
Guys, just call me when I can come back on this podcast.
Alrighty. There's the one side.
Wow.
Damn, that's a hammer.
Got some
How old do you
mask.
think that buck is, Comstock?
Yeah.
If my buddies are right, he's 9.5 and will be 10.5 next year.
I
Unbelievable.
believe it. That's
Yeah.
sweet.
You want to see my
Unbelievable.
match?
Yeah.
How big are those bases, Alex?
I mean, pretty much. I mean,
They look bigger if I could.
You're embarrassing yourself, Mike. Put those back.
there we go. I mean, not quite as big as a man, but that's about.
Damn, that's sweet.
That's
That's sweet.
insane, man.
Yeah, it's
How
pretty
close
fun.
were they to each other?
About 200 yards. So the week before, I've been following this deer, and I do a lot of because he's out in people's yards and stuff, and was able to see him when he was half racked at the end of January, and then a few days later he was shed. So I've been after him, and obviously haven't been able to find him. And then I was out walking whatever a couple weeks ago, and there's this little piece of timber, behind these houses, and I thought, what are the chances he's living over there? Because there was like one or two sets of tracks going over there. Crested this little hill, bumped a deer, and threw the glass up, and immediately knew it was him, even though he shed out. And right where I bumped him from, I found the one side, and then
That's awesome.
about an hour later, found the other side. I was just gritting every little, I knew it was close, and
Yeah, that's sweet.
That's
So
sweet, man.
you found it basically in his bed, the first one?
yeah, like literally where he was bedding.
What'd you find the second one on?
it was across the road, just like on a trail in a creek bottom. I spotted that one from about 100 yards away. Knew
I bet.
exactly what it was. So yeah, it was pretty
That's
cool.
sweet.
Hard to miss. I wish I
I
could
know.
look for antlers like that here.
Yeah.
I
You
noticed
know,
when I went.
I'm always anticipating seeing big horns, but in the reality, I mean, the ones I find are
I
year and
think
a half,
that's where the
2 year olds.
mistake a lot of people make is they're out there looking for 70-inch antlers, and the
Yeah,
reality of it is you're going to find all these dinks and 2-year-olds. Like,
exactly.
that's why a lot of people fail, I think.
Yeah,
Or
I
you got to be
agree.
able to pick up on the the curvature of a main beam, or if it's laying tines down. And
Mhm.
really, how
Hmm.
many so many times where I find those fake sheds, because I like you kind of know what you're looking for, when you're not just looking for a big antler. And that's why I
Right.
get you get tricked
Yep.
a lot. So
I learned
Yeah.
Yep.
I learned a lot this weekend walking. I felt like I did a lot of. I mean, we still got a lot of snow up here, and I didn't find a single shed on a trail. Everything was to a bedding area. Basically, you found where the trails were going to these sunny spots where there was pines or something where the deer would get under and there wasn't as much snow, and that's where all my sheds were laying.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm sure I'm walking over sheds on trails, but
Hmm.
you'd get to a spot and it's like, there's got to be a shed here somewhere, and that's where I'd find them always.
right.
I find very few on trails. Very
Hmm.
few.
Yeah, most of the sheds that I've ever found in my life, I don't know that I've ever found a fresh drop. And the ones that I have found have been obviously older. A year, 2 years been laying there, dirty. Most of them have chewed off tines. They're not protruding, not really sticking out to the eye.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the more misleading things about social media with so many pictures of a 70-inch side laying there,
Laying in the
time.
wide open.
Yeah, tines up.
Yeah.
That's a pretty darn rare thing in reality.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
But for me, myself, hitting the scrape back at home as usual for this time of year. Just been working. This past weekend, we had a weekend where we were not busy, so I just took the time to sit around, try and recoup, um, just lay low, hang out, waiting for bucks to drop. Nothing in our area really has dropped at all yet. We've got some cameras out on the property that we hunt, and the deer that we are seeing are still holding. So I'm not trying to get out there and kick them out and not find anything. So taking some time to relax,
Hmm.
rehab when I can get it. It's pretty rare. I had to work Saturday, so I didn't get a whole bunch of time, but the little bit I get, I enjoy. Spend some time with the kids, playing in the yard.
Hmm.
Uh, Brennan, man, what do you got? Hit the scrape.
Past week, been walking a lot, looking for sheds, all over Iowa. Did a shed trip, just a day trip with my buddy up in the northern part of the state. He's got some family ground up there that for the past 5 years, we make a day trip up there and walk all of that. Keeps us busy for a day. Did pretty well up there, and then came home for a day, and then I went back and hit the southern part of the state, hit some stuff down there, and just got home last night and recorded the trailer with Mike and Dylan and Aaron this morning. Got the booth ready. Gonna do some work around the house here for the next few days, and then Thursday night, Aaron and I are heading to Des Moines to hit the Iowa Deer Classic. So
Now that's your guys' trailer for Breaking Point season 7, right?
correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
You guys
gotcha.
Yep.
divulge any secrets of the premise of this trailer?
Nope.
Not even a hint.
I don't blame you. That's
Full
the anticipation, man. That's the
full
best part.
disclosure.
Hmm.
Sticky, preach.
So just getting back after it here this week. Was with these boys this morning. Got to go through submissions from our TVP draft, so that was pretty cool.
Yep.
Seeing what everybody put together for us, and was actually pretty surprised. We got some good good submissions. We made a
Good
list of
deal.
people that we're going to contact back and hopefully start to chat with. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Hitting the office hard this week, and heck yeah, good to be here for a quick Monday break.
Good deal, man. That's got to be tough bringing new people onto a team, especially a team when everybody's kind of close knit like you guys are.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I can't imagine the pain of going through those submissions and trying to find the right fit. It's got to be tough.
Yeah.
And Comstock, I meant to bring it up earlier, but I forgot. I always find it super interesting watching mature bucks grow antler like that. Like the crazy, freaky things they can do when they reach that age, when they start to kind of hit that decline.
Yeah.
But they build so much character. You know, it's so unique. It's like almost, I guess, a bigger trophy than like a typical giant 10 or something, you know, when you get when you shoot a buck that's that age. So can you break down how painful it was to shoot that deer and not recover him?
To wait, what?
Didn't you say you shot him?
Almost.
Wasn't he like 1 step or 2 steps
Yeah.
away from you? Yeah.
Yeah, clearly you didn't watch that video.
No, nope.
No, I had him at 20 yards for about an hour, and he was like 2 steps out from where I could shoot him, and literally.
Oh, I did watch that video.
Oh yeah, okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was very close to shooting him, and it was, I mean, you know, like to have him literally 2 steps away from being able to send an arrow at him, and I, you know, have, you know, a bunch of deer in front of me that I could have shot. You know, and it was December and it was cold, you know, and literally had my bow and like my release clip for like an hour, and then at one point he bedded down, stood up, and he just turned around and walked away, and you know, it didn't hurt a couple of weeks later, and I ended up shooting a different buck. So that
Yeah.
That had to hurt. That had to hurt pretty good at the moment, though.
Yeah,
'Cause
especially
I know you had well, along with a lot of us, we had all had a tough season, and you get to December and finally get a chance at one.
Right. I mean, but it'll be cool. I mean, I kind of wish I'd hunted this area in years before just to have like some history with this deer. I wouldn't had a, you know, I actually saw him on opening day this past year as well, back in September, and I thought he was, you know, I got a glimpse of him and I could tell he was a mature deer, but you know, then I was talking to buddies that live in the area and that shed hunt in the area, and you know, they filled me in on the history with them, but pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. It's part of it. That's what makes the wins so sweet. It's the shitty losses that happen.
Right.
All right, man. You guys ready to bust open a brand new segment? It's like Christmas morning for us. We just this week decided to do a segment where we allow our listeners to shoot in submissions on questions they may have for any or all of us on any topic at all. We call it Ask the Pack. So this will be our first official Ask the Pack, and we got some good ones. We got quite a few. We're going to break these down.
It sounds funny when you say that, but I dig it.
Sounds like ass pack when you say
We're going to have to call it something else.
This is going to be right up Jizz Pack's alley.
Ask the Pack.
We should have an Ask Jizz Pack.
We're gonna have to pick this name.
Yeah, just
Oh shit, man. I thought that was a good title. Ask the Pack. All right, we're gonna break out a new segment called Pack the Ass.
yeah. That ain't gonna work.
Oh man.
Some things seem so great in theory, and then in practice they just fall apart. Spitzley's dead.
Spitzley, get it together, man.
Oh.
I like Ask the Pack. I think it's going to be a good conversation, or like
I
it's
think,
going to.
yeah,
I feel like at this point we gotta.
I do like the idea of keeping the continuity. We've already posted about it calling it Ask the Pack and all
Yeah.
that. And it's Sticky's. That's Sticky's title, so I don't want to take more shit away from him. He already feels like we hate him.
Oh, I love it.
So what do we get asked?
All right, this week on Ask the Pack, we have Zach Rua of Dora,
Rewa.
Michigan. Rewa, oh, one of your buddies?
Yeah, he's a friend of mine.
I got you. Zach Rewa of Dora, Michigan. Trail cameras, locations throughout the season. Do you run them on public? If so, cheaper cameras so it doesn't hurt as bad if they get grabbed. Past experiences with public land theft. Straight pictures, or do you like to mess with video options on something like a primary scrape? And this is going to be a pretty detailed breakdown because this question feels a lot like an exam. Thanks, Zach. Mansell, are you running them throughout the season? Do you put them on public? And what are your practices if so? Take off from there.
I have used them on public in the past couple of years. Well, a few years, I'd say. It depends on the spot, though. Like, if I feel like I can trust leaving a camera there, I will. Primarily through the summer, because I know not as many people are going to be out and about in the summer on some of these pieces of public. So just trying to get an idea what bucks are in the area, and then a lot of times I'll pull them once, mid-October rolls around. If I don't trust it from then on, I just kind of want to know if there's going to be bucks worth hunting there. I will leave them later in some spots that I know don't get as pressured. But yeah, I mean, I do it. I have gotten burned on it in the past in a couple spots, but it's just the part of the game you play on hunting public.
Sucks. It's true. Good deal, man. Do you use video or photo or both?
I would say 75% video, or sorry, 75% photo, 25% video. I'll put video on like scrapes, just because I think it's cool to get video of some of these nice bucks hitting them.
Yeah.
Field edges I will too sometimes, because I've actually had a couple fields that if they lay out right, you can get a little bit more intel on deer that you're missing too. So not necessarily, I don't really use them much on trails though. Like I'll just usually put it in photo mode on a trail, stuff like
Sure.
that. So
Good deal, man. Comstock, what about you, buddy?
Yeah.
Where are you putting them? Do you run them on public? And what are your practices on public? Do you have any experience with public land theft and video or photo mode?
Yeah, so I've only got, 2 or 3 private pieces that I can hunt across the states that I hunt. So I'm hunting, majority public, and I'm running cameras, essentially year round normally on public. I've been burned a couple times in the past, but I've had pretty good luck actually. Typically a lot of the spots that I'm hunting or running cameras on public are either, really far back or, kind of overlooked spots. I don't hunt a lot of public that gets a lot of pressure, and that's, by design on purpose. A couple things, I want to start being more preventative on public land with my trail camera. So like I just ordered a crap load of like the stick and picks that screw into the tree, so that way I can hang them easily just high up, pointed down. That's something I want to try doing more of. Bring one climbing stick that you can just throw on the tree. It takes a little more work to go check a camera. You got to bring the climbing stick, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to take an extra, few minutes to just strap it around, hop up, and check the camera. Because I feel like a lot of people are either seeing the strap or they're seeing the just seeing the camera, and then then do their stealing, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother topic, because I actually had, in the area where I do a lot of my hunting in Minnesota, I had a camera messed with for the first time around here a couple weeks ago, and all they did was they took the batteries in the SD card and left the camera on the ground. So like at that point, just take the camera. I'm glad they didn't, obviously, but when you're touching other people's crap, it bugs me. But anyway, as far as photo or video, I'd say, yeah, about the same as Mike, so 75% photo. I got a couple cameras that I left on video on scrapes during, from summer till through the rut. And, I like running, the thing I like about video is you can see, behavior really well. You can get, depending what kind of camera I have, if you got good audio with it, you can kind of pick up on some things that are really cool. But it does take a lot longer to check a camera, instead of just scrolling through the photos. So that's pretty much what I think.
Gotcha. Solid. That sucks, man. I noticed that you also like to leave a little note in your camera that says smile. Smile, you're on a secondary camera.
Yeah, I've only kind of, yeah. Always got to have that secondary camera.
Yeah. It's theft preventative.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah, it is smart. For me, I hunt a little bit of public and a lot of private. My public land hunt, I don't put a lot of cameras out, almost never. But if I see sign in there, some public land I hunted last year, just giant rubs and a bunch of them. So I put a camera up. So it's kind of dependent on what I find when I'm in there hunting. So I don't run them early in the year. It's always a hunting season kind of thing. And it's just to figure out who's in there and who's been tearing things up, basically. If it looks like there's a good chance that a good buck that I want to shoot is in the area, then I'll hang one on public. And I'm kind of like Comstock. I have some friends who have spy high mounting, which is a system of mounting cameras up high that you have like an extension pole that you can screw a bracket in way up out of reach and then stick your camera on it with that same pole. And that's what I've used on public land. And I like that because I feel like it cuts your chances of theft quite a lot. And I think a lot of the time, like Alex was saying, a lot of that public land theft is people not wanting you to know they're there, which is probably why they stole your SD card and batteries and not the camera. Like they're just worried about you seeing who's in there. And we've actually had some private land cameras stolen for the same reason, because they're trespassing, realize they got caught on camera, and they just take the camera. So that sucks, which is another reason I really like to use that system. Just less chance of things getting stolen. It's easy to use. Takes half a second to throw them up there. And the pictures I get are great. I use a lot of cell cams so that I don't have to go back in there and check them. And my scenario is a little different because obviously activity on wild carrot scents is a big thing for our marketing. So we run a lot of cameras usually. We're running them on a lot of scrapes, hanging a lot of scents out. And we run video mode most of the time because that's where the money's at for us. Like, it's the best thing you can have is a buck coming in and getting on the wild carrot, on that licking branch. So we run a lot of video for that reason. But that's pretty much it for me. I have actually had more experience on cameras being stolen on private land than public. And that was before I started using those spy high mounts, which is the same idea behind throwing a stick up and using your stick and pick mount. It just out of sight, out of mind. You don't have to worry so much about people seeing them. Nobody's looking up. So
I actually had one stolen this year off the ground, like 8 to 10 feet off.
Really?
First time ever. Yeah.
No kidding. How you mounting that?
I just kind of same thing that Comstock did, put a stick up and mount it higher, and then just angle it down. And they somehow seen it. I don't know how the hell they seen it.
That's crazy.
I've heard of some people, I've never tried it, like, well, they'll hang a camera like around the base of the tree, like on the ground, and like have like kind of leaves around the base of it, like pointed up almost. And I've always thought of trying it, never have, but I don't know, kind of a unique idea too, because no one's looking like on the ground for a trail camera,
Yeah, for sure.
What if they're looking for sheds and they see it?
There you go.
Probably not running cameras during shed season.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
That's true. People are weird. B, what do you got, man? How you feeling about cameras? You running them on public? You run them all year, or what time of year? Do you use different types of cameras for public versus private? Fill us in.
North Dakota, we hunt a lot of public ground, and we've been hunting out there for several years, using trail cameras every year. And we haven't had a lot of issues. We have had a couple taken, but I would say for the number of cameras that we are running out there, and as long as we've been doing it, I'm not going to complain about the cameras that we've lost because, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we could have lost a lot more considering we're hunting primarily public ground. Other states primarily running them on private ground. I do up in Wisconsin. I've ran some on public, haven't had issues. Um, but I guess public or private, especially with whitetails, I kind of like to know what's around, so gonna want to put cameras out whether it's public or private. So, and as far as video or photo mode, I would say 75% photo, 25% video, just because I don't check my cameras very often, so I need that extra space on the cards. So I like to, and for the sake of going through, like if you have a camera out of state and you're going through 3,000 videos, I mean, that takes an entire day. And
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the time we're looking for who's there, not versus, like Comstock was saying, they're kind of where they're coming from and, what kind of mood they're in or something like that. So I can get the intel I'm really looking for through photos instead of video. So that's why, on the farms I hunt down here in Iowa, I will run them on video mode on scrapes and stuff during the pre-rut and rut. But other than that, a lot of photo.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than looking through 3,000 videos of a squirrel.
Yeah, it sucks.
All right, Sticky. What about you, man?
You want to talk about
Run.
scum of the earth? It's people that touch other people's trail cameras.
Yeah, it's true.
I haven't lost a lot of cameras, but I've hung a handful on public the last couple of years, and I've lost 2 or 3 cameras, I think now. And I thought that they were in spots that they weren't going to get spotted, or they're up higher, kind of out of line of sight. And I've had a few taken, and it's gotten to the point where I actually buy cheap cameras to put on those kind of spots where I think, they might be seen or have a better chance of it. Walmart's got these like $30 cameras, and
How about the
granted,
wild game ones?
yeah, I think these are like Tasco's.
You
But,
can bleep
I
that
mean,
out later.
They're I literally buy them because I don't want to lose. My coverts are too nice, so I don't want to lose a good camera, so I just buy these cheapo ones that as long as I can get a little bit of inventory and see if there's a lot of people in there, a lot of deer in there, or big deer in there. So yeah, I'll do that. But mostly photo and little bit of video. A lot of stuff. Time is just to get content, or get some cool scrape hits and that kind of thing. But,
Yeah. You guys use a lot of coverts, obviously. Are you using cell cameras primarily, or?
I haven't got into that at all. Mike and Brennan, they like running those. I haven't
Yeah.
really got. It's a step above what I really need at the moment.
Those are
It's
great
more-
for anti-theft.
Yeah.
It's mainly because me and Brennan hunt more private ground on our home properties that we hunt, and then we also hunt out of state lease property. So we're able to keep inventory, when we got to get down to hunt them.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Good deal, man. Well, that's good insight on trail camera usage. Some different perspectives from everybody, and it just goes to show kind of the variation of what everybody's practices causes them to do. Next up for our Ask the Pack, we have Thad Lucas, who is a world traveler. I couldn't find his whereabouts on Facebook.
He's on the East Coast right now. I know
Is
that.
he?
Yeah.
Somebody you know?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Part of the Teepee Creeper Club.
What's the Teepee Creeper Club?
I got hooked up with fellas that just like drinking and hanging out, doing outdoorsy shit, and he's one of them.
Nice.
So,
Cool. Well, he would like to know how our feelings are on the moon phase impact. So let's go through that real quick. His question is multifaceted, so let's break down this question one piece at a time.
Sure.
Spitzley, what are your thoughts on moon phase impact?
So I use the moon as more of like a confidence booster. I'm more of like a full moon guy, 7 days before, 7 days after. I haven't seen a huge change in activity as far as like the full moon goes. Um, but if there's a full moon and the moon's overhead, say we're talking about overhead underfoot, it's just more of a confidence booster for me, I guess.
Good deal, man.
They say that the moon being overhead or underfoot, the gravitational pull makes the deer get up. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. And I've seen that before. I've looked out in the field, scouting or driving around looking for a deer during the summer, and I've noticed deer being out in a field at a weird time of the day. So I'll look up like the overhead or underfoot time, and it's right around that. So as far as the phase, yeah, full moon. I'm gonna try my best to go to my best spots during that time frame, during the full moon, that is. But that's not gonna dictate whether I go hunting or not, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
What about
that's
you,
my big-
Mansell? Tell us your thoughts on moon phase impact.
I followed a little bit, not this past year I didn't as much as previous years, but I watched, this was, I don't know, a few years back, a podcast that juries did on just some of the stuff they do, and one of them they touched on was moon phase. And the biggest thing that they've noticed in their log that they've kept through all the years is the 5 to 7 days preceding and then 5 to 7 days after the full moon is where they see an increase in activity. And their theory is that it's due to I think it's the moon's rising like 20-30 minutes earlier in the evening, and then at post full moon, I think it's setting later in the morning, if I'm correct. I'm not 100% sure on it, but it's supposed to get the deer up earlier, or in the morning. It's supposed to keep them up later, is their theory. And I have noticed that it's partially true. I haven't had as much success on a full moon when I've hunted in the past, but I stick to hunting the cold fronts more than following the moon, my personal way I hunt. But I definitely do think it does make a little bit of a influence on their movements.
Do you think that a full moon during the rut is better? I've noticed a
I don't.
difference in that. Haven't you? Okay.
Just some of my experience, a full moon just seemed to kill activity for me
hmm
that I've ever had.
See, and a lot of people say that because, it's light at dark, lighter at dark, and the deer are on their feet. And my input on that is, I mean, deer are on their feet regardless at dark. That's their daytime. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I don't really get why people think that the full moon affects deer movement during the day just because they say it's light out during night or lighter out and they're on their feet all night. Does
I'll
that
break
make
that down for you in 5 minutes. Comstock, tell us how you feel. What are your thoughts on moon phase impact?
I'm sure there's some validity to all and every moon theory. I just care so much more about time of year and weather. So I really have never paid attention to it. I've read about it, I've listened to it. But when it comes to my actual hunting practices, I've never even used it as a factor. So that's kind of what I feel about it.
I like it. Personally, for me, I have always kind of hunted based on schedule, what my time frame allows. If I'm able to get out and hunt, I do. And I've killed some great bucks when the lunar calendar said you shouldn't, when deer aren't going to be active, during the off times that thing predicts. But I also do consider what that impact has as far as deer being a prey species I think that they prefer to move under the cover of darkness when possible, and that if they can see better because of a full moon, then they're going to be doing all the things they do at night as opposed to during the day. And this is just my personal philosophy. I don't pay attention to the juries or what anybody else says, because when it comes to these kind of nuanced theories on science, I feel like everybody has an opinion, and it's all kind of just their opinion. And this is just mine. When a full moon is coming or present, I always expect to see less activity, but I am still in the tree or still hunting, you know? So I don't really let it play into my plan too much. But I do feel like as a prey species, if you're able to move under the cover of darkness and see a little bit better the way that a deer would when there's a full moon, then they'd probably be more likely to do so. And
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. Maybe not. I have no idea.
I would
But
agree with that.
their primary concern is staying alive. So anything that will benefit them doing that is what they're going to do. So, you know, I just figure that when there's a full moon, they're going to be less likely to move in the day because they're out doing everything they got to do at night. Um, so that's just personal, you know.
Predators can see better too.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But they can see better than most species, but can they see better than they can in the daytime at night?
I don't know. They're not deer.
I don't think, no, I mean predators. Like, you know,
Oh
something
yeah.
that's going to predate on a deer, I feel like is going to be able to see pretty good at night, but not as good as they can in the day, like a coyote.
But a predator's usually going to try and attack when they can't expect it. And if they can see better at night, it's going to be a lot harder for them because those deer are going to usually know that they're there.
Yeah. They play the wind so well, you know, as a prey species. Deer are constantly monitoring the wind and moving under cover. And if they're able to do that at the nighttime with a little bit of moonlight and be able to navigate a little bit better than without that full moon, I feel like they'd take advantage of that because it's going to be a little better cover than midday. Uh, but I'm, you know, just a big idiot who has really difficult deer seasons from time to time. So my opinion doesn't weigh a whole lot, but those are my thoughts.
I mean, that's a good point though. I don't think I've ever heard that one, so that was a good point, I thought.
Appreciate that. B, what about you, man? What are your thoughts on the moon phase and its effect on hunting?
I don't pay a lot of attention to it as far as planning hunts, but I do find myself quite often blaming the moon. If we're having slow hunts, I'll be like, son of a bitch in full moon screwing us right now. Like I feel like I say that a lot. And during the rut in particular, I do notice that around a full moon, I see more midday activity. And I think a lot of that, and this is an opinion obviously, but I think a lot of that is because the deer were more active throughout the night and they're in their beds early in the morning. So that's why you see more of that 10 to 2 action. But as far as planning a hunt, I'm looking for cold fronts, not moon phases.
I like it. What are your thoughts on the science behind cold fronts, or is that just personal experience data?
I would say a lot. I mean, obviously, I highly respect Mark Drury. I listen to a lot of his stuff. I think he is one of the most knowledgeable whitetail hunters, and he doesn't have to prove it anymore. He kills more big bucks than, I mean, aside from Lee Lakoski. You can say what you want about, where they're hunting and everything else, but they still know what they're doing. And to kill deer to that age class every year consistently, it ain't because you're on good ground. It's because you know what you're doing. So I would say the weather is solely because deer, no different than someone that's got a broken bone in their body. When they feel the weather coming, deer feel that weather coming, and it just kind of forces them. They know they need to eat because there's bad weather coming. I think that's why cold fronts are so effective.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I've read so many articles that say fronts have no effect on hunting, but I will be out there every damn cold front. You know, it doesn't matter how much of the alternative research I've read. I just can't not something about it.
You can get deer, big deer, to do dumb things during those time periods.
Yeah. Sticky, fill us in, man. We're finally getting to someone who has some real knowledge.
I think that there's so many other factors to worry about that are so much more influential that the moon, like I just don't think it's worth even considering what moon phase you're in. I mean, I feel like there's like moon guides and all that out there, and I think they just really like it's like a horoscope, right? They want to take credit when they're right, but not when they're wrong. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, oh, the moon was perfect. That's why I killed this buck. Yeah, but it was November 4th and the temperature had just dropped or whatever, and I think I think the credit gets tossed to the wrong areas a lot of times. So to me, I think the credit should really go to more like the weather, the pressure, the time of year, that sort of thing, versus the moon. I mean, I've never really gone to the stand and been like, oh shit, what moon phase is it? It's like that's the last thing I would think about.
I'd say I never have either. Like, I just go and hunt when you can a lot of times, or when we plan to. But I have noticed, like, a lot of times I used to do this before the hunting season started. I'd look at the calendar and mark those 5 to 7 days before, those 5 to 7 days after, and it's like, okay, these are probably going to be your best days of the year. And a lot of times it was, and it probably partially has to do with the weather too. But
Oh, yeah.
And maybe because you mark those off and hunt those harder.
that's
You know
true
what I
too.
mean?
I
Like
wouldn't
you're,
say that though, because we hunt. I mean, we're
yeah,
hunting regardless a lot of times.
yeah. But it's crazy
But I kind of keep
confirmation
them in the back.
bias.
I keep them in the back of my mind, like, okay, those could be your best days.
Yeah,
It's more like a confidence booster for you, right?
Yeah,
Oh, you guys are twinsies.
got to be positive.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
go
like
ahead.
the honestly, I use the lunar calendar only to motivate myself to go hunt on days when I might not ordinarily go. Like if it's, oh, this is a 4-star day, but I gotta work. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go because this thing says it's a 4-star day. Just like, yeah, I don't give any validity to it, but it gives me a reason to get out when I might be busy otherwise. So I like it for that. But it's kind of just like a game as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Next part of Thad Lucas's question: do scent-free clothes actually work? And this should be a good one. Everybody's got kind of varying opinions on this, industry-wide, hunting community-wide. Spitzley, why don't you crank us off by telling us your thoughts on scent-free clothes? Why are you laughing, Pete?
Spitzley, crank us off.
Bring the ass pack.
Yep.
This might
Ask
sort
the
of be
pack.
just you. Yeah. I feel like Brennan, maybe your mind might be a little more convoluted than everyone else's.
Whatever.
So I'm gonna admit, like I used to be, I used to be a scent-free junkie. I used to be. I'd buy the spray, buy the clothes, I'd wash my stuff. I'd try to do everything uh, to be scent-free, and I've been busted, obviously. Um, I came to the conclusion that playing the wind is probably more efficient, um, and that you know these products out there trying to sell you stuff is just they're just trying to sell you stuff. So I do, however, still wash my clothes. I don't buy the spray bottles no more. But I honestly I just play the wind, and besides washing my clothes, that's all I do, and I leave it in a tote. So I'm gonna save that for another opportunity. I'm not too much of a scent control freak anymore. So
Yeah, good stuff, man. Mansell, what about you?
I would say, as far as scent goes, I don't focus as much anymore on the clothing aspect of scent control, like some of these scent control suits or scent eliminator suits that used to be the big fad out in the industry, or even ozone at that matter. I will, shower beforehand just to minimize my odor, and then like wash my clothes with stuff. But I've found more success not in scent elimination products, but scent products that are designed to fool deer's noses from smelling you. Regardless, I still play the wind because everything's not 100%. And I've had a lot of luck fooling deer that get downwind, but even your big bucks, sometimes even if they can't pick you off, they will get a whiff and they might know, hey, something's just not quite right. It's enough to where they'll leave, but it might not just blow them out of an area. So long story short, I do use scent control stuff or scent cover up stuff. But I don't go crazy with like the scent suits and stuff like that, like that some
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Or ozone
Sweats.
closets.
Yeah. Sweats, what about you, man? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of the same as Mike. I mean, I wash my clothes, I'll shower, and scent free stuff sometimes. Just try to like minimize my odor, but I'm not gonna go the extra mile and wash my clothes and then wash my hands before I move them to the dryer and then wash your hands again before you know what I mean? Like I think some of that's just hogwash because whatever, but I just like to play the wind as much as I can, and then I'll use like nose jammer I've used and had you know varying results with. I think sometimes you don't even know, right? Like you get deer that might be downwind and it doesn't bust and you think you're invincible and you do the exact same shit the next time and then a deer will blow and blow a million times. So it's like I don't know. At the end of the day, if a deer is not downwind, it's probably not going to bust you from smelling you. So that's at the end of the day, that's kind of where I lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I'm the same way. I used to use scent blocker clothes or whatever, I still wash my hunting clothes in scent free detergent, but I'm not looking for anything that's going to kill scent. I'm more looking for things that don't add scent, like with my detergent and my soap. I don't want any artificial scents in my laundry detergent that I wash my clothes with. I shower with grandma's soap, which is like lye and old school. There's no added scent. Um, it's just like lard, lye, and basic stuff. Um, and I don't do anything really. I have used sprays in the past, but I don't really do that much anymore. But I do usually hang a wild carrot out when I hunt, just as a cover. If I'm not using it as an attractant, I'll use it as a cover in early season or whatever, just to have a little bit of natural deer pee smell blowing downwind to anything that might come in. But I don't get down on the whole wrapping yourself in garbage bags like Dexter to try and go out and shoot a deer like a lot of these guys do. It's overkill, and at some point, you're taken away from the enjoyment of your hunt. I feel if you're just so laser focused on making sure you don't contribute any human scent, I feel like those people don't really have an understanding of how advanced a deer sense of smell is. But your best efforts are going to fall short. That's just the way it is. They're going to smell some aspect of you as a human, no matter what you do, because that's just what they have evolved to be. They're going to stay alive as best they can. So I don't get too wrapped up in that kind of thing. I do take precaution to not add any extra scent to my hunting setup, but I don't get too wrapped up in trying to kill my odor, if that makes sense. So that's that for me. By the way, wild carrot, great cover scent. Brennan, what do you got for us?
Used to be a scent control fanatic, and I'm about as far away from that now as you could possibly be. Like Mike said, do use cover scents to mask my smell. Used to use like coon piss, fox urine, stuff like that. Um, Nose jammer, scent thief, products that are supposed to fool an animal's nose versus cover my scent. I'll still wash my clothes, and I'll still take showers, trying to minimize my human odor. But yeah, I don't go too crazy about it. We've used ozonics and stuff like that, and had mixed results. And yeah, I guess I'm not as concerned about it as I used to be. I just try to play the wind the best I can.
Yeah, I think that's your best bet. We actually do have a commercial ozone unit that you would use for, most commonly it's used for renovation properties. Like if you bought an apartment where it was full of smokers and you were going to try and rent that out, you'd use this unit and plug it in, and it takes all the odor out. And that does work, but I don't think in an open atmosphere that's going to mask everything. So what we do is usually we'll plug that thing in the cabin or whatever, and hang all our clothes up one time a year, run it for a while, kills the odor that's in our clothes, anything left over. But yeah, it's just something that we happen to have by way of my old day job. Basically, it's not something we went out of our way to procure. So what about you, Sticky? Why don't you fill us in?
I think you hit it perfectly where like a deer's nose is damn near as good as it gets as far as noses go. And I don't think there's a way to beat it. And I don't think clothing is going to beat it ever. So I guess if we're just talking clothing, scent-free clothing, I used to use it. I used to be crazy about being scent-free and that sort of thing. And I mean, I still take necessary precautions, and I think it's mostly just to make myself feel better. Like I would never go out and think like, oh, I'm gonna beat this deer's nose if it's gonna be downwind to me. I'm big on scent wafers and that kind of thing in my clothing, just because I like my stuff smelling like dirt. But then again, I
Yeah,
think it's just for me. I just like associate that with hunting now, So I I I don't think scent-free clothing is worth it anymore. I don't think it
What
ever was. But
what about the scent lock or what is it, scent blocker or scent lock jumpsuit they came out with this year?
I haven't seen that.
You didn't see
Is
it at
it?
ATA?
No, is it like a onesie?
It's like a big black onesie that runs ozone when you walk into
Oh,
your stand.
Jeez.
there are a lot of companies in this industry, and I would say almost all of them just want your money.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they
don't
can make
tell
you think you're doing a better job, then you're gonna buy
don't tell that to John Eberhart.
Eberhart.
Whatever, man. All right, boys. Next up, we got Craig McPherson, Ionia, Michigan. How do you hunt a thick swamp where the big ones hang? Spitzley, crank us off with your answer.
A thick swamp, typically I'm going to set up not in the swamp unless there's a huntable tree. Um, when I'm scouting swamp areas or oak flats, I typically try to set up on an island or something that's going to be dropping acorns. Whether that's right on the transition where there is a huntable tree, or a tree in the swamp, which is it's hard to find. So I'm gonna leave that short. Um, that's all I got for that.
Sounds good, man. Mansell, what about you? You get into cedar swamps much?
I used to when I hunted up in the UP of Michigan. Um, Spitzley hit it head on though. That's exactly the way that we hunted up there, is on the transition edges. Or if there, the only other thing I could add to that really is if there was somewhere where there's a clear cut through a swamp or anything like that, that just creates a transition line is where we focused on.
Gotcha. So you guys kind of hunt it similar to bedding, like a thick bedding area.
Yeah, you basically leave it as a bedding, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you got, Sweats?
Yeah, pretty similar to those guys. I mean, I don't hunt like swamps very much or anything like that, but my biggest thing would be to scout your ass off in the spring, try to figure out where they're bedding and get as close as you can without bumping deer out. So probably can end up being right on the transition line.
Yeah, for me, it's very similar. I don't have a lot of cedar swamps down here where I'm at, but I would treat it like a thick bedding area, which we do have a lot of. And I would hunt the edges as much as possible, hunt the wind, obviously, and just try to stay on the outside. But honestly, I hunt the ground a lot, so it would depend on the time of season. Like if it's crunch time, I wouldn't be afraid to get in there and bump things around, play in the wind at the same time. I'm kind of aggressive in that way just because I have enough options that I don't really have to be super careful. So I'm not worried too much about bumping stuff. So yeah, I'm with you guys. Just treat it a lot like bedding. Just be careful. Look for food sources, few and far between as they are. Those can be your hot tickets. And that's pretty much it. B, what do you got?
Don't have a lot of experience with hunting swamps other than hunting with Mike in central Wisconsin. So I'm going to say a lot like you guys, just hunt it smart, make sure your wind's not blowing in there and blowing everything out of there, and try to catch them making a mistake on the edges.
Good deal, man. Sticky, what about
Kind of
you?
the same boat. I think, I wouldn't call myself an expert on hunting swamps, but I would definitely start at the edges.
Yeah.
Creek veg.
Yeah, that's a pretty niche market. I mean, it's not something that a lot of hunters come into contact with unless you're in specific areas of the country. Certain areas of the Midwest, you'll find those cedar swamps like he's referring to. But that's a pretty specialist area. So yeah, it can be hunted based on the same kind of principles that we use for any kind of bedding area, and I think that's the smartest play. All right, boys.
Thanks for the question, Craig.
Yeah, appreciate you, Craig, and Thad, and Zach.
I know Zach and Craig. They're good dudes.
Good deal. All right, next up we have Alex Genero, which I'm guessing is how you pronounce his last name, and I don't know his location, but I assume it's Baton Rouge. Tree stand versus Genero, Mr. Genero. Tree stand versus saddle, which do you prefer? Spitzley, start us off.
I'm gonna have to say tree stand. I've never tried a saddle. I've thought about it, just because everyone else is doing it now. But no, I'm a tree stand hunter.
Yeah,
I guess I don't really know why. That's how I always hunted, with a tree stand. So
good deal. Mansell?
I'm gonna say tree stand too. I've never personally tried saddles either before, but just from a filming aspect and just comfort aspect, I don't want something up in my junk all day long when I'm sitting in a tree. So I'm gonna go with a tree stand.
Word. What about you, Sweats?
Yep, tree stand for me too. The only experience that I have with the saddle is one was given to me a few years ago, and I immediately sold it and turned a nice profit. So
I'm kind of the same way. No one's ever given me a saddle, but I don't. Tree stand or tree saddles are nothing new. That was something that was deep in the hunting market. I think in the early 80s, and I've had some in-depth conversations with my dad about this, and he kind of said the same thing that I think is just they might be useful for some guys, but it's something different, something new. And if it's your thing, if you're into it, if you want to try that, I could see the benefits of a saddle. If you're constantly mobile and the weight makes that big of a difference. But honestly, if 2 or 3 pounds makes that big of a difference for you, then we're not friends. So I just don't see how, if you can pack 30 pounds and not 34 pounds in and out of the woods, then you're probably a bitch.
They're that hard.
But
If they're that, If they're
Oh,
that hardcore, what are they gonna do when they actually shoot a deer and got to get it out of the freaking woods? Then
That's
I,
kind of the
I,
way I look at it, man. And I honestly, I like this the solid nature of a platform. You know, being able to stand up, stretch your legs. And I understand that they've got platforms for saddles and whatever, but and I'm not knocking the saddle market at all. That might be the best thing going for some guys, and if that's your thing, then by all means have at it and get into it and love every second of it. But I just, if I'm going to be that mobile, I usually hunt from the ground. So, you know, tree stands most of the time, ground hunting any other time for me. B, what about you?
I have no experience with saddles. Strictly tree stand and ground blinds. We hunt out of ground blinds quite a bit later in the year when it gets cold. But tree stands for the simple fact that we got two people to get up in a tree. So saddle hunting, especially when you're throwing a camera arm and camera gear in a tree, it's not even an option really. So I don't understand the whole tree saddle thing, how it works when people are up in the tree. As far as when I envision it, I can see the shot over your left shoulder being a right-handed shooter. I can see that being an easy shot. But what the hell happens when you got something behind you or on the other side of the tree from you? What the hell do you do? I don't understand it,
swing
to
around
be
the tree,
honest.
I guess. But that's a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
movement.
get it.
It's
So
a lot of
I
movement.
don't know a whole lot about it, but it wouldn't matter even if they were awesome because we got two people to worry about. So I'm going tree stand.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, and that's what they claim usually is that you can kind of walk around the tree to get every angle, but it seems like swinging full circle around a tree is a lot more movement than
Mhm.
just standing up and rotating your body, So
For
I
sure.
don't know. Sticky, what about you, man? How you feel about tree saddles?
I really think it's just kind of like this fad that's going on around right now that like everybody just wants to be one of the cool kids running a tree saddle. And like, I think it's a really good way to get busted by a deer when you're swinging around a tree to try and make a shot happen when you could just be comfy in a stand. And
It's
I
more
mean,
about, sorry.
oh, I think I don't know the guys that I talk to that use them. It's like they're trying to sell it to you that it's like this is the way, man. This is you gotta try it. Like no, like
The,
you are
the
literally trying to legitimize this to yourself. I think right now.
the biggest thing is weight, man. I think it's the weight that they're hyping it
We
about.
sacrifice so much just for to save those couple pounds. Where it's like just buy a lighter stand. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I
some
didn't mean
great
to cut you off there,
companies.
sorry.
There's
no,
some great tree stand companies that make really lightweight stands. I
yeah.
mean, and I'd much rather hike in with one of those than to have the additional safety precautions and all that of running a saddle, you know,
Yeah.
getting hooked in and making sure all that's rigged up right.
If they can't handle carrying a light stand in the woods, then they wouldn't last a day being a cameraman.
No.
No
Well, and
kidding.
the thing is,
Try
like
it.
we run River's Edge tree stands, so I mean they don't have a very mobile, light stand like a lot of these other companies, and we still haul them fuckers back. I mean,
Mhm.
Canada, how far were our walks back there? Where it's like, dude, this sucks, but
So a couple
I'm
of a
gonna be
mile and
so
a half.
comfy when I get this thing up in the tree. Like, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, to
Yeah.
me, I'm with Josh. If you're whining about that couple pounds, you're a bitch.
I hope the tethered guys watch this.
That's just rude. All right, our last question we got also from Mr. Genero. He'd like to know more about camera gear. What are you running? Lens swap info. Uh, this is not my specialty, so I really don't even know how to process this question. But I'd like you guys to just kind of hit on it. But also, I'm going to preface this by saying the best thing you can do for any camera gear info is to go to B Point TV's vlogs and watch Dylan's gear breakdowns. He does a great job of running through what he uses, when to use it. I've watched him, and it's still over my head, but it's great information for anyone who's intelligent. I'm not going to group myself in that category, but Spitzley, why don't you start us off again?
He's asking what we're running.
Yeah, camera gear. Just go through what you're running.
Yeah.
He's asking like what you're running and what lens is used for what situation, but that's a really in-depth kind of thing. So let's just talk about what you're using for camera gear.
So I run a Sony a7 III with a 24 to 240 millimeter lens for tree stand hunting. As a part of my business now, or not my business, but the company I work with, they also have a Sony system too, so I'm provided with other lenses as well. As far as being in the tree though, I just run my 24 to 240. If I could afford a 70 to 200 right now, I'd buy it. I would recommend that lens, right, Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, but I would also say that 24 to 240 is the most versatile lens for guys that are either just getting started or need that versatility out of a one camera setup.
Yep.
Stick with the 24 to 240. Like that's
Yeah.
going to do all your jobs that you need it to.
And you'll be able to kind of get a wider angle too. Like say if a deer is right under you, the 24 will be a little better for that. The 70 will be a little tight for that situation. But as far as low light, I'd agree that the 70 to 200 would be a little better option for that. But I run Sennheiser wireless mics along with a shotgun, and then I run a fourth arrow camera arm. It's a carbon. I kind of wish I had a different a different camera arm. The equipment I have on that it's a little heavy for that. So I'm still trying to figure out a good camera arm for that because there's quite a bit of bounce in it. I do a lot of self filming too, so it can be a pain in the ass.
Good stuff, man. Mansell, what's your input?
I can kind of answer, I guess, mine and Brennan and Dylan's all as one. We all run the same cameras. We got A7 IIIs or A7 R3s. We usually got two of them just because we have a B-roll camera and a main camera when we're in a hunting scenario. So we usually, for our main hunting camera, is like a 70 to 200, 16 to 35 as a B-roll lens, or a 50 prime. Dylan, do we have a 24?
No, not yet. I also
No.
will run the 100 to 400 lens quite a bit as my A camera too.
We also got 2x converters that will run on some of those lenses, and if we're in areas where we need more magnification. As far as audio goes, we run Rode mics for shotguns, and then is it the UWP-11s
UWP
for
T11, I think.
yeah, for Sony. And then Sony makes an adapter that goes right into your shoe mount for the wireless audio, so you don't have to have the cords or anything like that. Tree arms, we run pretty much muddy arms. Anything, we got a few different kinds. Dylan's got like 5, but
my pile has been laying in the same spot on the floor for like.
But no, we stuck with muddy. That's where we feel like we can rely on. And we got Manfrotto tripods and heads on pretty much everything that we use. So
I think those muddies are solid. Like it's hard to beat. They might be a little heavier to pack in, but again, we go back to the concept of
they're
don't
not
be a
bad.
bitch.
The older ones were better by far.
Yeah, I've
They
heard that.
They make them cheap now.
Definitely.
I ran a couple over the fall, and do they still, I don't know if it was the old model or the new model, but the adjustments on them, is there a couple adjustments?
Brennan has, I don't remember the
I got one
name.
right here.
His old model is way more heavy duty than the Muddy's current like heavy duty model. It's just heavier metal.
Okay.
This is the older one.
I would use that one over any other Muddy arm that they make.
That's the one I ran, and I thought that worked out really good.
So you just got the up and down adjustment that's on this spinny wheel here.
Yep.
And then if you need to go side to side, you just flip these two brackets.
Yep.
Here and here. But I think the reason this one's so good is because it has heavy duty teeth on it. Like the newer ones, I know Dylan's got a lot of them. If you crank them really tight, you can bend those things.
Bend 'em,
And
yeah.
if the teeth, like Dylan's a tree arm guru, and if you put these teeth on the arms that Dylan has modified, I think you'd have the best arm there is.
Yeah, plus they have that support, that diagonal support. Most arms don't have that nowadays.
Mhm.
So it's just you're hanging way out there.
Oh yeah.
It's bouncy. Comstock, what about you, man? What are you running for camera gear?
Yeah, so a lot of the same as, these guys. I learned a lot of, my filming stuff from, Dylan and Mike, watching their stuff. And, so I'm running the Sony A7 III 24 to 240 as well. The thing I like about the 24 to 240 so much is, I do pretty much 95% self filming. So I need that, the versatile range, to be able to do it all with one lens. It's hard to be swapping lenses while I'm by myself. Another option too, whether you're gonna be a beginner or a self filmer, is a point and shoot camera. Like I also have a Canon G30, which I don't use anymore. I'll be selling, but it's a great because you can hook up whatever it's called. I'm having a brain fart here, where it hooks
Yeah.
up where you can control it all with your
Zoom.
thumb. Zoom,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So as a self filmer, that's awesome because obviously with the Sony, you're controlling the, whether it be the focus or the zoom, so it can be harder to do with one hand. So, and as far as the rest of the gear, it's all pretty much, they've already covered it, same stuff. So,
What are you running for a camera arm?
a muddy. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that kind of ends it because B and Dylan, you guys all work together, so your gear's all the same, right? Dylan, you want to expound on anything, or?
I would direct him to check out some of the blogs where I drone on about camera gear, because I mean I could talk about cameras for another half hour here, so I don't want to
Yeah.
let you
Like
guys
like
do
we
that.
can talk about sheds. Dylan talks about cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
enough.
they're very informative, man. It's something that I've watched as an aspiring photographer. Your vlogs are very helpful. I mean, just as someone who's getting into this for the first time ever, to take on this question from my point of view, mostly what I run for camera gear is an iPhone 10, and
Nothing wrong with
yeah, my camera arm is this one.
that.
That's pretty much it for me. I mean, I'm not, of course, I'm not in it for the professional aspect of capturing great photography. It's mostly just memories that I want to make, and there's nothing wrong with using your iPhone or whatever you have, if that's what it takes to get you out there and try to get after it. The phones these days can take great pictures. If you're not looking for making a professional career, you can easily take good photos from a phone, from the tree stand. So I don't knock anybody that does that kind of thing, because that's kind of what I'm into. It's just easy. But
Get a GoPro. GoPros work too.
yeah,
I forgot to mention that I use that for my second angle.
Yeah.
yeah,
GoPros work too. So
yeah. I actually have a GoPro, and I don't know where it is because I don't care. Well, that's pretty much it for that segment. We're going to transition now into our closer, which we call cracking cold ones. You guys got a fresh cold one? Bust her open.
I've got.
We'll cheers it up.
Thanks guys for all the
Just-
questions this week too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that segment.
Yeah.
I think it's a great segment.
That was.
Yeah. We're going to go into that. I was going to say cheers to all of us, and Spitz is drinking his green tea
It's actually
on that keto shit.
No, it's Jim Beam with that Zevia pop. You ever heard of that?
I have not, because I'm a heterosexual.
But don't you do keto?
Yeah, I don't see how those things are correlated.
It's sugar. It's pop, but it's.
Oh, I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a Rogan
Cola.
thing,
It's cola, but
right?
it's clear. What?
Isn't that a Rogan sponsor? Zevia? I think I've heard that on his podcast before.
Maybe
don't
we
know.
could get them.
There you go. Buy a lot of it. It's expensive too.
Yeah. Anyway, cheers to us, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, getting in on the show. Thank you to our listeners. We really appreciate you guys sending in questions. We want to make this thing centered around you, what you're into, what you're after, and we want to be helpful as much as possible. So, crack a cold one. Good evening.